Hey, welcome back, and thanks for joining us for this budget build for Quintorius Loremaster. Today we're tapped in the mind of our resident Lorehold specialist, Bob, who was kind enough to share with us his budget build for Quintorius Loremaster. So Quintorius is a 5 mana value 3/5 Elephant Cleric with Vigilance, and at the beginning of our end step, we exile target non-creature, non-land card from our graveyard and create a 3/2 red and white spirit token. We can then pay 3, tap him and sacrifice a spirit, to then choose a card that we've exiled with Quintorius and cast it that turn without paying its mana cost. It'll follow normal timing restrictions, so you aren't about to flash in a sorcery at instant speed or anything like that. And lastly, if that spell would be put into our graveyard, we put it at the bottom of our library instead. Boros is typically the colors of equipment and equipment, so whenever there's a Lorehold based commander, it always feels fresh. I can see why Bob is high on this, and as of this recording, our budget build for today, excluding commanders and lands, brings us up $72.33, according to MTG Goldfish. Our deck features themes of ramp, removal, and draw, but also other themes of tokens, finishers, aggro mode, and something we like to call UVP or utilities, bombs, and pets. So if that sounds good, be sure to hit the like and subscribe, and let's get to brewing. For ramp, there's nothing too crazy here. Artifact ramp is where it's at, and Soul Ring, Signets, and Mind Stone are pretty standard, so let's move on. Some value ramp though are Solemn, Commander Sphere, and Navigation Orb, which works like a manual transmission explosive vegetation, and which Quintorius can loop if you need more mana. A great value card you should probably play for its ramp effect is Restoration of a Ganjo. You get a Plains, discard it and get it back, and then it flips into the Architect, which produces 1/1 colorless spirits. And at the top end of our ramp is Atsushi. It's a better blocker than Solemn, and it's also a spirit, which means we can sacrifice this to our commander to create 3 treasures. Having the alternative to Impulse Draw 2 is also a great mode, so it's just really solid value at the 4 slot. Having Quintorius stay on the board is important to our game plan, and so while we run Wraths, we want him to stick around. Austere Command and Mass Calcify are asymmetric board wipes, which White is really good at, and these can also be recurred by Quintorius when the situation is dire. But when we're behind and we're facing Avengers level threats, Blasphemous Axe still gets the job done. Generous Gift is targeted removal that takes care of any problem. And finally, we also run a pair of Sagas. ECD exiles most problems away and can later reanimate one of our creatures. And the Elder Dragon War is a soft wipe that also lets us rummage, discarding cards we want in our graveyard and replacing them with a fresh batch. Sagas are good to have in this build, and I honestly wish we had more to run, because Quintorius lets us recur them with its activated ability, so we can technically get them on board again later in the game. So while that was a light removal package, we are running a thick card draw suite. Idol of Oblivion, Staff of the Storyteller, and Ayo the Dawn Sky are pure card advantage cards that net us positive in terms of card draw. I'm a fan of the staff, so I hope you're able to pick one up before the price spike. However, we do want cards in our graveyard, and looting to draw is something our colors are really good at. Smuggler's Copter, Cathartic Pyre, Illuminate History, and Faithless Looting are all net neutral, but don't underestimate the power of card selection. Meanwhile, Thrill of Possibility, Thrilling Discovery, Cathartic Reunion, Electric Revelation, Seize the Spoils, and Bitter Reunion are all net positive, in that we net one more card than we discard. To note, Bitter Reunion is an enchantment that we can sacrifice if we want to give our board haste, and which means we can then later recur it with Quintorius. Finally, we also run a wheel in Wheel of Misfortune. Confusing card for sure, but in all games I've seen displayed, there's always one player who always wants to keep their hand. So this usually reads as a 3 mana, pay 1 life to wheel into a new hand. We've been talking about recursion, but we do need spirits to sacrifice. Twilight Rover and Court of Grace gives us ways to get a slow and steady source of spirits. And yeah, Court of Grace can create angels, but odds are we're not keeping this monarch. While Benevolent Offering released the memory and promise of Bunray, I feel like this is misspelled. Anyway, they all let us burst create tokens, with Release the Memory being a nice piece of responsible graveyard hate. Finally, Haunted Library and Spirit Cairn are mana sinks that likely trigger more than we think. The library triggers post-wipe, which gives us a board, and Spirit Cairn triggers whenever we loot, which we're hoping to do a lot of. With spirits in play, our commander now has the fuel to cheat out some finishers. Approach of the Second Sun is a classic finisher, and casting this for free with Quintorius lets us put it 7th from the top. Just remember though that to actually win the game, you need to cast this from your hand. Stormherd is a funny card that is almost impossible to cast, but it does net us a lot of Pegasi if we get it out early. Disrupticorum is another funny card that I like, and it goads all creatures we don't control. And since it's only 4 mana to cast, it's possible to get a second casting of this to goad twice. Mob Rule is a budget insurrection that is almost just as good at ending games, while Surge to Victory is a giant pump spell that can have us swinging for lethal while also potentially netting us a lot of value. I mean, imagine just tacking a Storm Herd onto this thing. Now, a finisher you might be sick of in Standard is Parhelion 2. Because it's a vehicle, we can cheat it into play with our commander, and if we get to attack with it, it puts a lot of power on the board very, very quickly. And finally, Layla the Blade Reforged. Yeah, we can't cheat her out with Quintorius, but she can get pretty big over the course of a game. And plus, she's a spirit too. Now ideally, we want to win with those finishers, but if things go sideways, we can still go aggro mode with our spirits. Anchor, Lorehold Command, and Hoffrey Ghostforge all give haste, with the latter two giving a power boost. Hoffrey's also a way to make our board a little more resilient because he gives our creatures pseudo-undying. Drum Bellower is a spirit that gives us pseudo-vigilance, allowing us to attack but not be wide open for the crackback. Balefire Leech, Drugskull Reinforcements, and War Resistance are cards that can give our board +2 power or more, along with some upside like life gain, protection, or haste. OG Quintorius also gives our team +1/+0, and alongside our commander gives us a refund for sacrificing a spirit to activate its ability. And finally, one of the best battles in March of the Machine, we have Invasion of Gobakan. I don't know much about this plane, but this card does so much. The front side is a good way to delay a Wrath out of someone's hand, and when it flips, it rewards our team for attacking, and it also gives us the flexibility to protect them with both hexproof and indestructible. UBP time! Our board, and especially our commander, are important to us. Swiftfoot Boots, Guardian of Faith, your Temple Center Attack, Selfless Spirit, and Unbreakable Formation all give ways to protect key pieces and even our entire board. And speaking of our commander, Battle Mage's Bracers lets us copy Quintorius' ability, allowing us to cast one more thing from exile for free. Lorehold Excavation and Perpetual Timepiece help fill up our graveyards, and Reconstruct History lets us put cards back from our yard, and it's a potential 4-for-1. I've always seen this card overperform, so don't sleep on it. Last card, Kami of the False Hope. It's a spirit, and it's a fog. Seeing a fog effect on board already disincentivizes attacks, and so this little creature might save you from aggression for significantly more than just one turn. And that's it for this episode. I'm gonna be going on a short break. Real life is happening, and so I'll be away for a while, but I'll be back in a little over a month. But thanks again to Bob for this build, and if you enjoyed this budget brew, be sure to leave a like and subscribe before you go because it really helps the channel out. I look forward to hanging out with you guys more in the near future, and I hope we can all enjoy more brews, more gameplay, and more podcasting nonsense. So stay inspired, friends, and I'll see you soon.